Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the impressions of an artist. When you look at this painting, what do you see? Do you see a depiction of revival and recovery from war? A metaphor for the passage of time? Or perhaps simply a sunny harbour scene? Impression sunrise was an important part of Monet's work. He often used various viewpoints of the scene, capturing the effects of light and water on the landscape. Seeing this at different times communicated how transient our impressions can be. Everything can change with the passage of time. It may surprise you to know that Monet didn't seek to impress the eye but to play with it, making him an unusual forerunner for the art of neuroscience. When you view the image, you'll see that there is form. However, the final image itself is being completed and refined within the brain. The human eye can be tricked and deceived, and so I'm going to show you a few examples of how this is possible. I'd like you to raise your hand if you believe that the tile labelled A appears to be darker than the one labelled B. So it seems most of the audience agree that it is in fact darker. However, what if I told you that they were the same? The grey strips here blend into one, indicating that they are the same colour. This particular illusion plays with the way our brain understands contrast and shadows. In this image, I'd like you to raise your hand if you believe that the orange circle to the right is larger than the one on the left. Once again, just like the last illusion, you agree that they're different, and they're in fact the same, once again. The way we perceive reality is being tricked by techniques of manipulation. The work an artist produces can tell us a lot about the way they perceive reality. They don't always see the world for what it is, but what it potentially could be. And so, while almost everyone receives images in the same way, the trained eye of an artist allows for different cognitive interpretations of these images. In a study known as perception, Steinberg took 9 psychology students and 9 art students and observed how each group viewed 16 different images. The study found that the non-artists would focus their attention on whole objects, most predominantly people if they featured in an image. Meanwhile, the artist took a different approach, focusing on structural and abstract features, as well as scanning the image as a whole significantly more than the other participants. The perceived surroundings of an artist are broken down into lines, shadows, shapes, and contours, and then recreated on a canvas by which particular features are drawn out, so as not to produce only a specific style, but a unique interpretation of reality itself. However, there are also other factors to take into account. Our perception of the world around us is figuratively distorted by many things: fears, concerns, moods, and beliefs. Perhaps our subconscious programming affects the way we see reality as a whole, and therefore determining our personal interpretations within our artwork. Social factors were the most difficult to overcome for any artist, especially during the 17th century. Establishments such as the Royal Arts Academy had already set a precedent for how art should take form. It created a controlled standard as well as an expected subject matter in order to build a reputation. Public opinion is vital in order to become a successful artist in the real world, and so most artists would expectedly follow the predetermined rules already accepted. Claude Monet, however, took a more unique approach to his work and demonstrated how his subjectivity prevailed over a basic interpretation of reality. Monet was an artist particularly significant in the establishment of the Impressionists. By the early 1880s, him amongst other artists such as Cézanne and Degas had already begun to push the limits of what establishments had previously deemed as artwork, developing his own unique style and subject matter. The Impressionists rebelled against the classicism of the art world. They rejected clarity of form and instead embraced a looser style of brushwork as well as brighter and more vibrant colours. To most critics of the time, paintings of this type were perceived as amateurish and unfinished. In fact, the name of the movement came from a critic, Louis Leroy, who named their artwork just an impression. However, this did not prevent Monet from pursuing his style, and so he disregarded the satire intended and instead took the name on with pride. Unlike many artists of the time who sought to depict the heroic tales of the Romans and epic biblical scenes, Monet found beauty and inspiration in the simplicity of nature. He aimed to capture the world as it appeared in a moment of time, embodying the transitory nature between light and colour, and the way in which surfaces and reflections interact with each other. In many of his paintings, there is continuity between each component, showing an interconnection between elements. The sea and sunset would merge into one, and lights dissolve into the night sky. Impression Sunrise is by far one of Monet's most famous works of art. Created from a scene in the Port Le Havre, it depicts the sun's orange glow in the misty setting of a busy French harbour. However, it had quite a notorious reputation upon its first arrival on the public art scene. Along with Pissarro, Sisley, Manet, Cézanne and Degas, Monet organised an exhibition where his painting was displayed for the first time. It sparked outrage to the visitors, being branded as graffiti, and many complained that the subject of the painting was barely identifiable. In fact, this is the painting that branded the group as the Impressionists, and the piece was exactly that. The complementary colour scheme is a notable feature of this work. It enhances the intensity of the other when looked upon in comparison, thus working to draw our attention to reflections of light on the water and the darkly painted figures in the boats. In order to trick the brain into believing that something appears to be lifelike, artists focus solely on light, shadow and colour. In Monet's words, when you go out to paint, try and forget what you have in front of you, a tree, a field. Merely think, here is a blue square, an oblong of pink, a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you, the exact colour and shape, until it gives you your own naive impression of the scene. His actual technique, however, went way beyond a naive impression. By observing this painting, you'll see that how the sun pulsates and the light shimmers on the water. This effect is known as ecoluminance. To the observing eyes, the sun is indisputably the brightest part of the painting, as it is the light source. However, if we switch it to grayscale, we can see that it can no longer be distinguished from its background. They have been painted with equal luminosities, meaning that while the colours are different, the value is the same. Take a look at this optical illusion, for example. After observing it for a few seconds, you might find that the shapes appear to be moving and the edges appear unclear. However, this is merely a trick that our eyes play on us when it cannot discern which colour is brighter. This same effect gives the sun a vibrational quality, emphasising the movement within the painting. The contours of the shapes become lost and merge into one. Monet sought to capture the essence of the scene. The feeling and intangible atmosphere meant more to him than simply representing what he saw in an exact and technical manner. Despite Monet's passion compelling him to paint with emotion and intuition rather than accuracy, we must remember that the visitors of the time were less enthusiastic, claiming the scene to be completely unrecognisable. So, is there any justification for such a reaction? A close look at the painting enables us to see that, even by Monet's standards, the technique utilised appears to be almost unfinished, with the canvas appearing to be visible beneath the brisk wash of brushstrokes. To the untrained eye, it seems that this may be a preliminary study rather than a finished piece. However, when we approach the work with a deeper understanding, we are able to appreciate not only Monet's style, but his purpose for creating such a piece. Impression Sunrise may not accurately depict a scene. It is, however, brimming with atmosphere, capturing a single, never-to-be-repeated moment in time. When I personally view this painting, it makes me wonder about the darkly painted figures in the boats. Who are they? Where are they going? And did they ever return? For me, this particular work forms a bridge to understanding the art of seeing, our ability to perceive more than colour, shape or form. Monet's work shows how we are able to go beyond this. It takes us into the realm of feeling, of a deeper sense of the reality behind the surface of things, leading us to something beyond the reasoning of our preconditioned beliefs. Monet, along with his fellow Impressionists, abandoned the confines of the studio in favour of the changing light, colour, atmosphere and momentary scene. It was a brand new way of not only painting, but of seeing the world around us. For the first time, artists were shown that it was possible not only to paint what they saw, but to paint the scene which left the most profound impression. Monet developed techniques way ahead of his time, tricking the brain into seeing things that were not truly there. He created all of these effects so that you may continue to share in his experience of that one moment in time. Thank you.